And I mean, it's quite intuitive, honestly. This is the ideal type of communication system. Just, yeah, it's time, right? People trading their time,
But it
producers
wouldn't
spend
have
time.
worked. It can't work unless it's a completely open system. And that's what makes it so great. And
Right.
so Bitcoin and RSS really, because that's really what podcasting is. Those two, they're just like the Mac daddies of the backbone of messaging and free speech. I mean, Bitcoin, if you say money is free speech, Bitcoin is free speech. Podcasting is the literal embodiment of free speech or
Right.
freedom of speech, whatever you want,
Yes.
whatever political slant you want to give to it, but fucking speaking your mind and not having someone say you can't do that and you're done.
Right. Yeah. No, it's absolutely incredible that, and it seems like because that was such an important part of the world, right? If you go back to the days of Plato and Socrates, like that's what they did. They all came in the square and they talked, and it was just,
And it got rowdy.
yeah, it got rowdy, and there's there's a lot of dialogue basically taking place,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the dialogical process is very important for figuring all these things out. That's how we've gotten this civilized, basically, is through thinkers like that and through that process. But in the 20th century, it got really screwy because everything, it seems like, because the technological landscape was such that everything was top down, right? We were basically getting messaging through mainstream media, which if you really analyze what mainstream media is, it's like Michael Malice calls it, the corporate press. I think you'd also call it like the central bank funded media apparatus. Like, you're not getting truth through that medium. You're just getting agenda or propaganda.
A message. Yeah, messaging.
Yeah. And people didn't have this ability to have this peer-to-peer, value-to-value. The technology just wasn't there, essentially, for at least the entire 20th century. And so now, perhaps in the digital age, we're having like this resurgence of dialogue, or this return to the public square format of people just talking amongst themselves, and that seems to be really powerful. And the way Bitcoin, as you said, it is just free speech that also happens to be money, but now it has this extra capability, I guess, through the Lightning Network to re-enable, or to enable rather, freedom of speech in the digital age in a way we never had before. So it's super fascinating. You could almost call it, I mean, it's almost like money over internet protocol in a way, but then you can attach speech to the money as well
Mm-hmm.
to
Well, I think
increase the signal.
Yeah, the comparison has been made that Bitcoin is, or maybe it's better to say that Bitcoin is like the TCP/IP stack of the internet, and Lightning is the HTTP.
Right.
This is the stuff we build on top of it. To go back to what you said about mainstream, and this is what I've done, for the past 15 years of my life with Dvorak, is deconstruct mainstream media, or deconstruct media is more fair, because we grew up, we participated, him much more on the publishing side, but also television, radio. I was really exclusive television, radio. And we understand the mechanisms, how it works inside these organizations. I was at MTV for 7 years, arguably one of the most woke corporations then and now. And which can have successes depending on what era you're living in. But the town square where we're all coming together and yelling, we didn't have little people walking around shuffling the opinions, based upon some plan, which is what algorithms do. So you do not have a town square on Twitter. You do not have a town square on anything that has algorithmically displayed results. You're being manipulated one way or the other, intentionally or not. You're being manipulated. It's not truth. We often say in podcasting, the feed is the source of truth. So whatever you have in your podcast feed, that's the truth. I don't care whatever else someone is showing you. So we have reached, in effect, you kind of, with the Byzantine generals problem, we have reached that decentralized speech protocol, and that is Bitcoin. You can, depending on how you use that message, it is, there's a value attached to it now, but we can have other types of messaging systems that may be a little more efficient for actual speech. And there's many examples of them. There's many decentralized systems that are up and coming. But I would argue that a good 85% of the population just believes at this point that Facebook is the internet and Twitter is the internet, and have no desire to learn how anything works, and are not being educated that way. And the education system is way out of whack with what we need to be teaching our children. You know, and in my mind, it's like, here's an old laptop, here's a Linux distro, install this shit, and then we'll get email working, and then we're going to talk about what you did. You've got to understand what the hell is happening. Otherwise, you will always be manipulated by technology.
Right.
Very early on, I read The Industrial Society and Its Future. Have you ever heard of this?
I have not. No, I haven't.
So it's a paper by a Stanford professor, and it explains exactly where it was written in the early 80s. Takes us all the way up to this point, where the majority of young people have so much technology and schooling has changed so drastically that most people entering the workforce are over socialized and somewhat undereducated in general life skills. The joke of this is that professor's name is Theodore Kaczynski, also known as the Unabomber. So
Wow.
just to point out that, you know, a document that accurately predicts the situation we're in now and where we might go. Now, it's very fatalistic, but he was so determined to have people read this in the days before the internet that he went to drastic measures of blowing people up until the New York Times and the Washington Post published it, which they did. And even that didn't make a difference. He's rotting in jail and he's going to die soon, without his message really being universally understood. And he's not wrong. A lot of the stuff that's in there is, and it's just technology. It didn't start with iPhones. This goes back to literally, the industrial age. So we should at least know where the pitfalls are. Maybe we can stop some of the demise, which seems apparent.